So you say you want to swirl dip. All right. Swirl dipping is extremely cool. It's not for everybody, but it is really a neat process. Even if you can get one kid to do it, this is not necessarily just a guitar thing. You can do it with woodworking projects too. Probably with metalworking projects. Probably a lot of different projects you could swirl dip. I know there's different methods out there. Us being in a school, we're not going the spray paint method because of the VOCs and all that. I highly recommend a paint called Marble Magic, and we'll show you a picture of this. Marble Magic, it works. There are other things you can do, and you can see I'm going to be shaking these while I'm talking because it's nice to always have them shaken up. There are other ways you can do it. Marble Magic has worked all over the country, whatever kind of water we've encountered. Sometimes what works like in Iowa won't work here in Pennsylvania, or vice versa. Marble Magic has worked everywhere. Doesn't matter the pH and all that stuff. Swirl dipping, back to the idea of actual swirl dipping with whatever kind of projects or experiment. Maybe you can do in a classroom, you can do them with little cups and just using sticks and things like that. It really is a cool science lesson. And there's a lot of STEM ideas behind it. What I'm going to be showing you is how to do it on a guitar and my experiences with it. I've had, I don't know, half a dozen students swirl dip guitars or ukuleles. And I've done a few as well, my own personal ones. This case, I have my guitar kind of roughed out, and then I primed it with a white primer. You can use a white paint if you want. In between, we're just going to go with a white primer. Make sure it's sanded, no dust, all that stuff. I also have taped off a headstock, and I'm going to be dipping this. I'm not dipping the whole neck. I'm just dipping the headstock. All right? When you go to do this, you want to make sure you got everything ready. Because once that paint's on the water, you got about a minute at the most, I would say, before it starts kind of skinning up. And it looks like old school pudding that you would make on your range at home. George Costanza once talked about pudding skins on Seinfeld. Anyway. Room temperature water. I've done it with cold water. I've done it with hot water. Room temperature water gives me my best results. So I'll let the water just sit here. And it's a garbage can with plastic bag in it. And I keep a lid on it. Maybe twice a year I'll change out the water. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the camera on a tripod. And I'm going to have a helper have me do this. You can do it by yourself, but it is easier with two hands if you can. All right, campers, here we go. So I have my 4 paints over here. I'm going to start with my dominant color, and then I'm going to add in my accent colors. So we're doing Pembridge colors, school colors of green and white. Because the guitar is already white, I do have some white paint, but basically this is just kind of a placeholder. We're not super worried about a lot of white. That's just going to help separate the other colors. Marble Magic, they have all different varieties and different colors you can get. Besides a primary set, which is just your primary 6 bottles, they also have a metallic one, which is what we're going to be using here, metallic green. You can also buy pinks and shades of colors, along with silver, which is what we're going to be using as well. So you put it in there, and I don't know, 5-6 drops or whatever that was, and you can see pretty good coverage. I'm going to leave the lid off of that because I am going to be coming back to it. Now I have my silver and my gray color, which it appears I don't have a lot of, but that's okay. We didn't want a whole lot. Anyway, a little bit of white. And then we're just going to go with a little bit of black just to help break things up as well. Okay. I'm going to go with more silver if I can. That might be the end of it. And now more of the green, because that wants to be our dominant color. What I like to use is a metal coat hanger to stir this up. The bigger the surface area your stirring stick, the more paint is going to stay on that. You can see this is starting to skin up. I gotta hurry up. I'm talking too much. All right, I'm going to start in the back. You don't want to stop as you're plunging because you'll get a line. I'm going to nice slow motion in the back, but also bringing it forward as I do that. And then my helper is going to help move paint away from the surface of the water for me to bring that back up and through. And what's really cool about swirl dipping is like instant gratification. You'll notice I screwed my electronics cover on the back. Notice how I did the front and I chased the paint forward. So your back will get neglected, but I'd rather have my back neglected and have my front look good. You can see the sides get pretty good, but that's all right. That looks pretty darn good to me. It's almost set already, but what I like to do is hang this either up like this or put it in a bench vise like this and drying upside down. We have both our parts swirl dipped. I happen to have this wire hanger here so you can see the guitar hanging here. So I'm just going to leave that for a day or two to dry. The headstock, because typically this isn't how you would do a headstock, that I already had this neck finished and the tuning machines are in it too, so that's why it looks kind of different. It's taped off. I'm going to remove the tape from this because I don't want any moisture in there and trapped in there and damaging the wood. Typically you swirl dip your neck before you do all that, but this is a guitar that I previously had made that I wanted to use for swirl dipping. I don't know if I mentioned it, but it's worth mentioning. Make sure your water's nice and cleaned off before you start. Also clean it when you're done, so that's what I was in the process of doing. It is nice to have gloves on. Not that this stuff is necessarily bad for you or anything. It gets sticky and it's kind of annoying. So be aware of that. Wipe the top of your bottles off really good before you put the lid on, because that can get crusty in there and allow air in there, and it will dry out on you. Not that you won't do that, but make sure your students do that. Also wipe off the sides and all that stuff. I'm going to let these dry, like I said, for a day or two, and then I'm going to spray them with a clear coat, which helps seals it, protects the wood. I like using a gloss. I think it really brings out the colors of the swirl dip when you do that. But again, on your body, make sure no water's in your pockets, because that can seep in and it could actually expand. It could ruin your glue joint of your body blank itself. So make sure that your guitars, if you are doing them with the pockets already made, if you're doing them with holes already drilled, things like that, make sure you get all that water out of there. But I think other than that, I think we have it covered. It's a cool process. Again, Marble Magic really is a reliable product, and what us on the Sten Guitar team recommend. So swirl dipping.